In a few hours from now, Britain's chief scientist will tell an American audience in Seattle how dangerous he believes global warming to be. We already know he thinks it's a more serious threat to national security than Al-Qaeda. Now, strategic planners working for the Pentagon have produced their own report on the risk climate change poses to global stability. Growing evidence suggests the planet is being pushed to a tipping point that could alter the weather radically, not in centuries, but in a decade. If that happens, it could cause mayhem in countries overwhelmed and destabilized by huge temperature shifts. Here's Ben Gagan.
Since 9/11, nothing has been as important for America as the war on terrorism. But Britain's chief scientist has been arguing that there is a more pressing problem which the Bush administration hasn't done enough to address. Sir David King thinks global warming is the biggest danger facing the world today, more serious even than the threat from Al-Qaeda. He's accused the US government of failing to take up the challenge of climate change.
David King is absolutely correct to say that the United States is not addressing global warming in a serious way. The Bush administration not only walked away from the Kyoto Protocol, but it has opposed any meaningful standards to reduce carbon dioxide pollution that causes global warming.
Tonight in Seattle, Sir David will repeat what most scientists accept, that human activity is making the Earth warmer and that big cuts in greenhouse gases are needed.
The climate models predict that over the next 50 years, we're likely to see a rise in global average temperatures of maybe 1 or 1.5 degrees, which is more than the global warming we've already seen. And the impacts of that on all sorts of systems such as sea level rise, such as extreme events like heat waves and extreme rainfall events, floods, possibly wind events like storms. There's really wide-ranging impacts on the climate system of the whole world.
President Bush has decided not to impose mandatory limits on carbon dioxide production because of the harm they might do to American industry. The US believes the emissions targets in the Kyoto Agreement on climate change are arbitrary and expensive.
I will not commit our nation to an unsound international treaty that will throw millions of our citizens out of work.
So the policy up until now has been to give individual states the freedom to regulate themselves. The government is also investing heavily in technology as a way of coming up with solutions that don't hurt the economy. But environmentalists are hoping that new research for the Department of Defense might soon bring about a different approach.